For thousands of years, there's this one landlocked region that's somehow been the crossroads of the entire world. So today, on Quick Country Histories from Notebook Summaries, we're going to unpack the amazing, complex story of Uzbekistan.
So, how did this place, completely surrounded by land, become a massive center for empires, wealth, and learning for literally thousands of years? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. It's all about its unique geography. Being stuck right in the middle of giant powers and sitting on top of the most important trade routes in history. All right, to really get a handle on this incredible journey, we're going to break it down into 6 main chapters: the ancient Silk Road, its Islamic Golden Age, the Age of Conquerors, the Russian influence, the Soviet era, and finally, how it's forging its path today. Okay, let's kick things off way back in antiquity. Long before anyone ever called it Uzbekistan, this land was a huge prize. I mean, it was this fertile, super strategic crossroads that every big empire wanted a piece of. So this place was always being fought over. You had these waves of different people just sweeping through. First, you get these Iranian-speaking Scythian nomads. Then the huge Persian states like Bactria and Sogdia. After that, Alexander the Great himself marches in. And it doesn't stop there. You get the Kushan Empire and then powerful Turkic tribes. Each one of these groups left their own distinct layer. But here's the thing, its real power wasn't just about armies and conquerors. It was about commerce, the Silk Road. I mean, this thing was the economic engine of the entire ancient world. The local merchants turned their cities, places like Samarkand and Bukhara, into these incredible, glittering magnets for wealth, for new ideas, and for people from all over. So you've got all this money and all these different cultures mixing together. It was the perfect recipe for the region's next big transformation. A new religion shows up on the scene, and it kicks off an absolutely unprecedented golden age of science and learning.
Right, so in the 8th century, Arab armies sweep in and they bring Islam with them. And this was a massive turning point. There was this one decisive fight, the Battle of Talas, where they beat the Chinese armies. That single event basically set the course for Central Asia for the next 1,000 years, completely changing its culture, its faith, its entire destiny.
And the result? It was just astounding. Under Islamic rule, the region didn't just stay important, it exploded into this global hub of learning. I mean, just think about the minds that came out of this period. You've got Al-Khwarizmi, the guy who basically invented algebra. Then there's the medical giant Avicenna, whose books were the standard in Europe for centuries. It's just an insane concentration of genius. A true golden age, no question. But like so many golden ages in history, it wasn't gonna last. This incredible period of science and philosophy was about to get completely shattered by one of the most feared invaders of all time. And then, get this, followed by another, equally ambitious empire builder. Yeah, we're talking about the Mongol invasion in the 13th century. It was an absolute cataclysm. Genghis Khan's armies were just unstoppable. And they didn't just conquer. They leveled cities. They wrecked the ancient irrigation systems that the whole region depended on to survive. And they completely changed who even lived there. The destruction was on a scale that took generations to even begin to repair. And yet, out of those exact ashes, something incredible rises. The astonishing empire of Timur, or Tamerlane, as he's also known. He makes Samarkand his capital, and then he does something amazing. He brings in the best artisans, architects, and thinkers from all over the world to build this glittering city. This kicks off a whole new cultural boom, the Timurid Renaissance. But the glory days of the Silk Road empires were starting to fade. You see, new sea routes started bypassing Central Asia, so its influence began to shrink. And right at that moment, a powerful new player shows up from the north with its own set of global ambitions.
So by the 1800s, Timur's huge empire was long gone. It had shattered into 3 rival Uzbek states, or khanates: Bukhara, Khiva, and Kokent. And these guys were constantly fighting each other. And with the Silk Road in decline, they were getting weaker and weaker. They were totally fragmented, and honestly, dangerously vulnerable. And that weakness, it was the perfect opportunity for the expanding Russian Empire. The Russians saw potential, for sure, but their main goal was cotton. They called it white gold. They desperately needed a secure source of it, especially after the American Civil War messed up their supply lines. And that need for cotton drove a full-blown military conquest. By 1876, all 3 of those khanates were under Russian control.
Now, you might think that when the Russian Empire collapsed in 1917, that would mean independence, right? Nope. Instead, it ushered in something even more controlling, an even more transformative era. 70 years as a republic created by and for the Soviet Union. Moscow didn't mess around. They consolidated their power through this really brutal step-by-step process. First, they just crushed the local resistance. Then, in 1924, they literally redrew the map and created the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. After that came the disastrous policy of forcing all farmers onto collective farms. And the final, brutal step was Stalin's purges, where they arrested and killed the very same Uzbek leaders who had actually helped them in the first place. And the consequences of all this were devastating. They're still being felt today. Moscow's obsession with cotton turned the entire region's agriculture into just growing one thing. This needed a crazy amount of water, which led directly to one of the worst environmental disasters of the 20th century, the almost complete drying up of the Aral Sea. And on top of that ecological nightmare, they spent decades systematically crushing local Islamic traditions and culture. And then, 1991, the unthinkable happens. The Soviet Union just collapses, and almost overnight, Uzbekistan is an independent country for the first time in modern history. But that brought a whole new world of problems. So independence is declared on August 31st, 1991, and a brand new chapter begins. For the next quarter century, the country was defined by the iron-fisted rule of its first president, Islam Karimov. His time in power was marked by some really serious challenges: the rise of extremism, violent protests, and government crackdowns that got a lot of criticism from around the world. And that brings us to today, and a final question about where Uzbekistan is headed. After Karimov died in 2016, the country started this period of cautious reform. So the big question is, what's next? Which part of its deep, complex history is it going to draw on? Is it going to revive that ancient legacy as a bustling crossroads of culture and trade? Or is it going to lean on its more recent past as a very centralized, top-down state? Honestly, the answer is still being written. The story of Uzbekistan is just such a powerful reminder of how geography and history are completely tangled up. If you want to explore another country's journey, go check out our Quick Country Histories playlist. And hey, make sure you subscribe to Notebook Summaries so you don't miss the next explainer. Thanks for watching.